I've got this Land Rover water pump, which the impeller has seen better days. It's hanging by a thread there, that one, and it's pretty tatty. Now I'm going to try and pull it off, but there's no recess in the shaft for the tip of the pulling tool, so it makes me wonder whether I'm going about this the right way. I can't see any pins holding it in, and I've looked in the parts catalogue and it doesn't seem to be pinned in, so I'm just going to try and pull it off. Let's have a look at the tool. So I'm just going back to the trusty crankshaft splitter tool, and I'm going to set that up and come back to you. So much as I would like to just pull this off with this crankshaft splitter, it's very difficult to actually get any purchase under that impeller. And having read the instructions say to remove the set bolt from here and to put the whole thing in a vise and drift it out. And if you drift it out from the hub this way, this should come off. Which seems like a bit of a cack-handed way to do it, but that's what it says to do in the instructions. So that's what I'm going to go and do. I'm going to go and stick it in a vise and bang 7 kinds of daylight out of it with a drift. Yeah, so it could be starting to move out, that shaft, because I've got it in a vise like it says in the book, and I'm drifting it out from this end out, so it should pull this shaft out. It's pretty corroded, I know. Might just put a bit of oops, excuse me, a bit WD-40 on there, bit of the old penetrating. Let's see how it goes. Well, I'm banging away and something's coming. The bearing, by the looks of things, but the impeller is just getting crushed up against here. It doesn't seem to be moving in the shaft for anything. I mean, I don't want the impeller, so I don't mind if it gets all crushed up. But it seemed to me to be easier to pull it off than drift it out like this. You know, but there we go. We'll keep on hitting it and see what happens. Okay, more hitting, more this visible. We now have some sort of line of demarcation. Maybe that's where the bolt held it in, but it's just smashing the impeller down there with it, down the hole. But anyway, we'll keep on hitting it and see what happens. You know, it just would have been so much easier to pull this off, I think. Oh well. Okay, so during the wear and tear of trying to drift out the shaft, the impeller was completely destroyed. All of the fins are disappeared, snapped off. And the press, a shot press with a socket on the end, has pushed it through. It was a kill or cure, and yeah, it pushed it through. So there's the bearing. It's got the pulley mounting still on the front of the shaft. Probably fall on the floor and shatter now. But no, yeah, it didn't cause any undue stress on the housing. Let's lift it up actually. Whoops. A bit of disability. Let's just lift it up here. Okay, so there's the tip of the socket. And let's just lift that out and have a look. Obviously this was thinner than the shaft, and there's still some travel to go before the pulley is actually, or what's left of the impeller, is ready to come out. So let me get a longer socket. So look down there, the socket is just about, the socket's on top of the shaft, and there's some fresh rust showing orange where the shaft is pushing through the impeller body. Normally the impeller would be covered with the fans, but they've all snapped off. So let's continue to wind down on the pressure. Hopefully nothing untoward will happen. It seems to have dropped through, and there's the pulley housing on the deck of the shop press. Yeah, let's take it over to the bench and have a look at what we got. Okay, well, let's face it then, this is supposed to look like an impeller, but it isn't. Okay, so we got this out finally. That's a £5 part, the new impeller, so I'm quite happy with that. Here's the seal that was underneath it. I suppose that's a special one. And yeah, so that goes in there, which goes over here, take you over to the old. And the inside is really good. I expected it to be really good because I had a look at this bearing, which was really good as well. You know, no water's got in there. It was just the impeller had been exposed to the elements, and it needed replacing. So we don't need a new bearing. You know, so that's one thing. We can get a whole new water pump housing ready-made for about 30 quid. But this one, being the original, sort of off the truck, it's kind of 70 years old. It's got a little part number down here, which is just about legible. Probably not legible on the camera actually, or so forget it. But what have we got here? Some markings there. It says Bros. Bros 102 or something. Anyway, so that was, I actually thought that shaft would slide through this, but this slid through the impeller. So I suppose when I get a new impeller, it'll slide over that. Well, it won't slide over that, we'll have to press it on there. But that's not a big deal. Let's have a look in there, it's nice and clean. Well, we've got, what I'm talking about is this surface here is nice and clean, the bearing surface. I've got to get a new nut and spring washer to actually hold the bearing in place. I think that holds it in place down this groove. Yeah, and that's really quite good, I think, that bearing. If I had to replace the bearing, it probably wouldn't be worth doing this job, I don't think. At the moment, I'm into this job for a new impeller, about 5 quid, and a seal, which will probably be about 3 quid. So it's 5, but any more parts, and I'm afraid this beautiful cast iron housing, which I have rescued from a 70-year-old, 60-year-old truck, I'm afraid it's going to have to be consigned to the shop blasting and put it on the shelf as a souvenir. I'd like to make a sort of techno hairdryer out of it or something. Oh well.